Hi, my sleepy peeps. Hey, I'm Sleepy Sap, and welcome to my channel. Today, stick around if you want to see if you have my permission to go to sleep tonight. And the only way that you get my permission to sleep is if I say your name. And if I don't say your name, well then, sorry, but you don't have my permission tonight. Maybe next month if you join my Patreon. Yeah, cool. So this will be my saying my Patreon's name video for the month of December. And so if you want to be in next month's video, you can go ahead and join my Patreon, link down below. And I say this every single month, but if you happen to have someone's name and you're not a member of my Patreon, so I see your name for free, well then, lucky you. Okay, I hope you enjoy, and I'm just kidding. Even if I don't say your name, you can sleep, I guess. Okay, enjoy. So, if your name is A, then you can go to sleep. Good night. Good night, Adam. R's. Good night. AK. Good night, AK. Alonso. Good night. Alex. Good night. Alex Lombera. Good night. Andrew Mayfield. Good night, Andrew Panji. Good night, Andrew. Anam. Good night, Anam. Ant. Good night, Ant. Anthony Curry Wheeler. Good night, Anthony. Anthony Montalvo. Good night, Anthony Montalvo. A pet named Steven. A pet named Steve. Good night, a pet named Steve. Arda Alton Kilk. Good night, Arda Kilk. Asfa. Good night, Asfa. Austin Mozingo. If your name starts with a B, all my B names here. Belly Button. Good night, Belly Button. Good night. Belly Button. Ben Stevens. Good night, Ben Stevens. Benny Lie. Big Salami 19. Good night, Big Salami. Blake. Good night, Blake. Bradley Spittler. Good night, Bradley. Brandon Castenda. Good night, Brandon Castenda. Brennan Richmond. Good night, Brennan Richmond. Good night, Brennan. Good night, Brennan Richmond. Good night, Kalazan. Good night, Calaco. 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 Carl. 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 Good night, Carl. Carlitos. Carlitos. Good night, Carlitos. Carlos Cruz. Carlos Cruz. Carlos Cruz. Sierdian. 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 Chantal. Chantal. Good night, Chantal. Chimeralite. 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 Good night. Jokosem. Jokosem. Good night, Jokosem. Chris Baker. Chris Baker. Chris Baker. Good night, Chris Westberg. Chris Westberg. Chris Westberg. Christopher Guzman. Christopher Guzman. Christopher. Good night. Joy. Joy. Good night, Joy. CJ. 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 Good night, Connor. Connor. Good night, Connor. Connor Pasica. Connor Pasica. Connor Pasica. Cookies. 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 Cups with the ice. Cups with the ice. Cups with the ice. Good night. Dakota. Good night, Dakota. Dakota. The man. The man. The man. Dandigan. 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 Daniel Diaz. Daniel Diaz. Daniel Diaz. Daniel Gone. Daniel Gone. Daniel Gone. That potato. That potato. Good night, that potato. David. 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 Dennis R. Dennis R. Dennis R. Derek J. Thomas. Derek J. Thomas. Good night, Derek. Diego. 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 Dimas Adinak. Dimas Adinak. Dimas Adinak. Dombao. 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 Don Q. Don Q. Good night, Don Q. Dopichu. 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 Dwayne Mill. Dwayne Mill. Dwayne Mill. Dylan Johnson. Dylan Johnson. Good night, Dylan Johnson. Enoch. 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 Eric. Good night, Eric. 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 Good night, Eric, son of Hans. Eric, son of Hans. Eric, son of Hans. Eshiquito. 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 ET Gaming 18. Good night, ET Gaming. ET Gaming 18. Good night, Ethan. 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 Easy. Easy. E. C. Fiscates. 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 Good night, Frankelstein. 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 Franks. 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 Gabriel Gervais. Gabriel Gervais. Gabriel Gervais. Gabriel Lazarte. Gabriel Lazarte. Good night, Gabriel Lazarte. G. B. Good night, GB. GB. Good night, Jean Starwind. Jean Starwind. Jean Starwind. Hafiz. 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 Hipster baby fat. Hipster baby fat. Good night, hipster baby fat. Hurdy-gurdy hero. Hurdy-gurdy hero. Hurdy-gurdy hero. In my illusion. Good night, in my illusion. Inside you. 7576. Inside you. Good night, inside you. Isaac Lopez. Isaac Lopez. Good night, Isaac. It's Betty Prince. Good night, it's Betty Prince. It's Betty Prince. Ivan Arias. Ivan Arias. Good night, Ivan. Jacob Howard. Jacob Howard. Good night, Jacob Howard. James Eichel. James Eichel. James Eichel. Jay. Good night, Jay. Jay. Jeff. Good night, Johnny. John Krebs. John Krebs. John Krebs. Good night, Juan Marquez. Juan Marquez. Juan Marquez. Good night, Juan Marquez. Julian Kendall. Julian Kendall. Julian Kendall. Good night, Julian Kendall. Junior. 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 Good night. Kabuki. 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 Good night, Kabuki. Kaden. 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 Kaiwen 7. Kaiwen 7. Kaiwen 7. Kartik. Kartik. Jane. Kartik. Jane. Kartik. Jane. Good night, Kiara. 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 Kemuel Williams. Kemuel Williams. Good night, Kemuel Williams. Kev. 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 Good night. Cole. 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 KYC. 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 Levi. 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 Little Penguin. Little Penguin. Good night, Little Penguin. Lucian Pilot. Lucian Pilot. Lucian Pilot. Luke. 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 March City. March City. March City. Mark Quizilla. Mark Quizilla. Mark Quizilla. Massive Pepega. Massive Pepega. Massive Pepega. That better not be inappropriate. Matthew. 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 Maddie Fatty. Maddie Fatty. Good night, Maddie Fatty. MDMA. MDMA. Good night, MDMA. Mikey Ortiz. Mikey Ortiz. Mikey Ortiz. M-Lad. M-Lad. Good night, M-Lad. Mo. 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 Good night, Moonlit Sunrise. Moonlit Sunrise. Moonlit Sunrise. Murat Yolker. Murat Yolker. Murat Yolker. Name. 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 Nick DB. Nick DB. Good night, Nick DB. Omar Vega. Omar Vega. Omar Vega. Oscar Garcia. Oscar Garcia. Oscar Garcia. Oscar Gonzalez. Oscar Gonzalez. Good night, Oscar Gonzalez. Palmer. 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 Parker Hansen. Parker Hansen. Good night, Parker. Pluto. 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 Good night, Pluto. Polar Bits, aka Michael. 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 Good night. Polish Pog. Polish Pog. Good night, Polish Pog. Race Min. Race Min. Race Min. Good night. Reed Qureshi. Reed Qureshi. Reed Qureshi. Good night. Ren X Gen. Ren X Gen. Good night, Ren X Gen. Rick 056. Rick 056. Good night, Rick 056. Ronan. 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 Good night, Ryan Davila. Ryan Davila. Ryan Davila. Sam W. Sam W. Sam W. Good night, Scott Cogan. Scott Cogan. Scott Cogan. Shintaro. 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 Simon. 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 Solomon Kravitz. Solomon Kravitz. Thank you, Solomon Kravitz. So much mass. So much mass. Good night, so much mass. Stefan. 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 Songyu. 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 Super Mexican 17. Super Mexican 17. Good night, Super Mexican 17. Sayafik. 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 Good night, Taran Singh Bokal. Taran Singh Bokal. Sing Bogow, the Carmageddon, aka Cody, the New Taken King, Thomas R, good night Thomas, Tony 2, good night Tony 2, good night Travis, Trenta 66, good night Trenta 66, Truffles, good night Truffles, Tut, good night Tut, you love Geo, good night, you love Geo, Vincent, good night Vincent, Biscuits Mink, good night Biscuits Mink, Waffle Taco, your mother, Zach S, and oh my god, that's in Japanese, I might be reading it wrong. And 2-cent coin. Good night, 2-cent coin. Okay, everybody. Did you get my permission or no? Thank you to everyone who was a patron in the month of December, or to anyone who watched all the way through. Thank you. I appreciate you all so much. Even if I didn't say your name, you have permission to sleep now. Okay, there you go. Go to sleep now. Thank you for watching. I hope I see you soon. And if you want to be in next month's video, go on and join my Patreon. Thank you so much. I love you all. You're gonna have the sweetest dreams. And love you.